Oh, no! The curse of the rustic clip. Okay, so maybe it's not that dramatic to get your 1960 Impala or Bel Air molding installed, but if you've got one of those cars, I'm sure that you've run into the same problem. You've got a stainless steel molding, but a steel backing plate that is oftentimes completely rusted out, the studs are gone, and how do you get this beautiful piece of artwork back on your car? In this video, I'm going to show you just how to do that. Stick around. My name is James Howell, and I'm the son of Danny Howell, part of Southeast Chevy Parts. We've been in business for over 50 years and have helped over 150,000 Chevy enthusiasts like yourself get your classic Chevy dream car back on the road. Since we specialize in the parts business, I thought this video would be perfect for you. Now, if you are restoring a 1960 Chevy, I'm sure that you have run into a lot of challenges. Not only do they not reproduce many of the parts, but even the parts that you can find are just falling apart. Take, for example, this upper long quarter molding, which can be either the short version on the door or the long version which goes down the wing of the rear quarter. It has a beautiful stainless molding. However, GM was not thinking about making these things last forever, and so on the back side you of course have the mild steel that fast forward 70 years and the thing is absolutely deteriorated and falling apart. So there's pretty much hardly any way of getting this thing back on your car except for what we've got for you. I'm going to show you how we're going to remove these and install new clips. Now, I must warn you, there is going to be some preliminary work, so depending on how bad the backing plate is on your molding will determine how much work you're going to need to do. As you can see with this one is pretty much gone, so we're going to go ahead and remove the entire backing plate and install new clips so that we can put this back on the car. Step number one is going to be removing the backing plate. And so what we are going to do is we are going to be isolating each of these sections here and using the tapered molding to our advantage by cutting it off and then sliding it down the molding so that we can easily remove it. Sometimes we may have to actually use the Dremel tool to cut into the metal there, but we try to limit that as much as we can, so that way then there's less likelihood of us cutting into the molding. Now, in this portion here, what we're going to do is we're going to actually want to raise this section here and actually put a small piece of metal underneath of it. You can either put, in this case I've got a screwdriver here lifting it up. The idea is you want to lift it up off of the molding itself. You can also put a spatula or some type of steel piece underneath there, just so that as you're cutting with the Dremel tool, you're not going to be cutting into the molding itself. All right, so with that ready and in place, we're going to go ahead and with the beauty of time-lapsing, we're going to go ahead and get this cut off and get working. All right, so we got our first piece cut there, and now with that loosened, that will give us the ability to start sliding this out. Now, here's one thing that you want to keep in mind is that I've already pre-soaked this with WD-40. You definitely want to do that, perhaps leave it for a while so that way it soaks into it. Again, it all depends. This is a pretty bad piece, so I let it soak all afternoon. But you want to use some WD-40 in there to loosen it up so that it makes it easier when we're going to be tapping this out. The other thing is I'm going to be using a punch, and it's a round punch, and make sure that there's no kind of burrs or anything that's going to be cutting into the molding as we tap this out. So we want to be very careful with that. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we're going to be putting this up against a soft place. I've got a piece of wood here in the back that I'm going to push that up against there, and that way then I can be tapping it. Another way that you can do this is you can also, if you're working on a bench is just simply by putting it straight up and down and being able to use that to tap into it. Either way, whatever you need to do in order to get it loose and moving it again towards the wider end of the molding. So let's get going. All right, well, that was our first piece, and it took a little bit of time, but thanks to time lapsing for you, it didn't take that much time at all. But as you can see, I've got now our first section. This was in here like so, and I simply tapped it out. Now, again, you can, if you wish to, use a Dremel tool in that area, but you really run the risk of cutting it too, because there's no space where that metal is. You could cut right into the molding. And so my recommendation is to do it this way. It's going to take a little bit more time, but at least you preserve your molding. As you tap it out, and as you saw, once it got far enough, it simply falls out. And so now I've got to go ahead and I've got to do the same thing here with the rest of the molding. So we'll get going. Well, there you go. After a bit of time there, now it is the steel backing plate is completely gone. And as you were probably watching, you noticed why you would not want to probably get this thing polished just yet. So that is step one, which is honestly going to be the hardest part, which is going to be removing the entire backing plate. Now again, mine was extremely rusted, as you saw, and so it may take a little bit more time. If it doesn't have a lot of rust, oftentimes it'll come out a bit smoother. But I wanted to choose a really bad one to just show you even the worst ones can take, can be released. Now, one thing I do want to also point out is that if you have just a few studs that are broken, you don't have to change out the entire thing. In fact, what you can do is, using the Dremel tool, isolate which section that you need and just cut that portion out, and then you can use the clips that I'm going to show you in a bit to reinstall it and put it back then on the car. And so if you're only missing a few studs, you may need to just isolate a little bit, but as you saw with this one, we needed to change out the entire backing plate. So I'm going to go ahead and get cleaned up here, and then we're going to go on to the next step. Okay, for the next step, step 3, it's going to be prepping the body. And now what's important to note is that GM made a little section here. There's 4 slots right here that they put these oval holes, because you're intended to buy these kind of retainers here that will be end up installed there to receive then the original GM backing plate. Now, you're still going to be able to use these, however, you will need to do some slight modifications on there to where you'd actually have to shave half of it off. There'll be instructions to show you exactly what to do there. But what I want to show you is really these 4 here, the reason why they did that is because it's very difficult. You'd have to be like a contortionist in order to make it to put the thread on the back side of that. Now, if you're not a contortionist, then that's why you put these here to install. However, just to be clear, really the only one that is necessary is one, like these 2 or one of them, because these ones are pretty much impossible. These ones you can pull off the back panel and still have ease of access to the back side of that. You can do it however you want. You can do all 4 of them, or you can modify just the one that you can't really reach and access. Once you've modified the retainers, you would again go ahead and slide it in, push it into there, and that would lock in the retainers. For the rest of them, you're going to be able to use the clip and the threaded nut that's provided. So once you've prepped the body and that's all ready, it's time to go to the next step. All right, so it is now on to step 4, which is going to be installing the specialty clips. GM clearly did not make this with clips, and so as I said, there are some modifications, and these take some specialty clips because not only is there a concave shape to the molding itself, which makes it very complicated, but it also tapers. So you got larger clips at the front, on the door, and the start of the rear quarter, and then as you move down, you got a medium-sized clip, and then you've got smaller clips all the way down at the bottom. And so, or at the end, I should say. And so this is going to take a kind of like a curved with a concave, so it's a specialty bend to it and everything that'll match your molding and be able to pull it nice and tight. And so I'm going to show you kind of the simple form. I'm going to show you with one of the larger clips, but it's the same concept all the way down to the very end. And at the end, you actually would end up using a slightly modified clip there as well without the spring kind of load. This has got like a spring on it, and what that is intended to do is kind of hold the clip in place. And so as you see, if I put this in here like that, I'm going to rotate it around so that it's nice. You can see there, it'll have like a diagonal shape to it there, and then this spring you're going to lock into place simply like so. So what that does is it locks it into place, and you want it, all right, what you want it to do is you want it to be locking it going in a clockwise position, because when you tighten this thing on there, you want it to be tightening it into it and not doing the opposite, because if you did the opposite way, as you would be tightening it, it'll then loosen and then pop out, which you don't want at all. All right, so you want to make sure that you put it in and lock it so that it's pushing it in a clockwise position. And that's it. Once you've got that installed, you would then, of course, install the rest of them. Now, I actually need to say this. When you are prepping and prepping the body, you may also want to take the molding itself and mark and go down the molding, marking where the clips would be. The nice thing is when you have it installed like so, you can see they are able to move, so you don't have to have it exactly where it needs to be, but you need to have a general idea, because you're going to be lining up those moldings to match the holes when you install it in. But as I said, that's pretty much it. You'll go ahead and install the clips all the way down, and then once you've done that, we're ready to go to the next step. All right, finally, the final step, the installation of the molding, the very reason why you're watching this video. Let's go ahead and get this thing installed. So you should have a general idea of where the clips go on the vehicle, as I said earlier, kind of marking on the molding where they are. So as you line up the molding with the clips and the holes, you should have a pretty good, ooh, there we go. That actually worked out very nicely. All right, you'll press it in, and whether it was 1 or 4 of the retainers that you use, those ones are locked into place, so it should hold the molding up, and you should be good. Only thing that's left to do is take the threaded nut, go on the inside, cinch it up, tighten it up, so that baby is going to look nice and tight as you drive down the road. Beautiful 1960 Bel Air and Impala with this beautiful molding now installed. Well, yours I'm sure is going to be a little bit more beautiful than this, but you get the picture. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. I will put a link in the description below where you can order not only the clips, but we also have moldings for a 1960 Bel Air Impala Biscayne, and I will see you on the next video.